The security landscape of Eastasia underwent a fundamental transformation in December 2022 with the revision of Japan's 3 key security documents. This shift marked a departure from a strictly defensive posture toward the adoption of counterstrike capabilities, a move driven by the rapid advancement of missile technologies in neighboring nations. At the center of this strategic evolution lies the acquisition of the American-made Tomahawk cruise missile. As of early 2026, the implementation of this acquisition has accelerated beyond initial timelines, offering a concrete case study for analyzing the practicalities, limitations, and strategic intent of Tokyo's new defense posture. The initial schedule outlined by the Ministry of Defense aimed for the deployment of these missiles to begin in the fiscal year 2026. However, the deteriorating security environment prompted intense diplomatic negotiations to expedite the process. Consequently, the delivery of the first batch of missiles commenced in 2025, a year ahead of schedule. This acceleration underscores the urgency felt within the Japanese defense establishment regarding the so-called gap in deterrence. The procurement package, valued at approximately $2.35 billion, is not merely a purchase of hardware, but includes the fire control systems, technical support, and software necessary to integrate a foreign offensive weapon into a historically defensive maritime force. The composition of the 400 missiles acquired reveals a pragmatic approach to capability gaps. The inventory is split evenly between 200 units of the Block 4 variant and 200 units of the newer Block 5 variant. The decision to accept the Block 4 models allowed for the expedited delivery schedule, ensuring that the Maritime Self-Defense Force possesses an immediate, albeit slightly older, deep strike capability. The subsequent delivery of the Block 5 missiles introduces enhanced lethality and survivability. The Block 5 variant features upgraded navigation and communication systems that make it more resistant to electronic jamming, a critical factor in the contested electromagnetic environments of Eastasia. Furthermore, the Block 5 includes the Maritime Strike Tomahawk capability, allowing it to engage moving targets at sea. This specific feature is particularly relevant for an island nation like Japan, where neutralizing an adversary's naval approach is as vital as striking land-based missile sites. Operational integration presents a more complex challenge than procurement. The primary platforms for these missiles are the Aegis-equipped destroyers of the Kongo, Atago, and Maya classes. While these vessels are equipped with the Mark 41 vertical launching system, which is mechanically compatible with the Tomahawk, the integration of the tactical Tomahawk weapon control system requires significant software modifications and crew training. Since March 2024, Japanese sailors have been undergoing rigorous training aboard United States Navy destroyers to master the operational protocols. This highlights a crucial dependency. Hardware can be bought, but institutional knowledge regarding offensive missile operations must be built from the ground up. A critical analysis of this capability must address the concept of the kill chain. Possessing a missile with a range of 1,600 kilometers provides the reach, but it does not automatically provide the vision. The effectiveness of a counterstrike capability relies entirely on the ability to detect, identify, and track targets deep within hostile territory. Japan currently possesses a robust defensive sensor network designed to track incoming threats, but its independent intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities for identifying targets on foreign soil remain limited. Consequently, the initial operational capability of the Tomahawk fleet will likely rely heavily on target data provided by the United States. This reliance raises sovereignty concerns and questions regarding the autonomy of Japan's decision-making process in a crisis scenario. Without its own constellation of targeting satellites and long-range surveillance drones, the Japanese spear remains dependent on American eyes. Furthermore, the deployment of the Tomahawk must be understood as a transitional measure rather than a permanent end state. The Ministry of Defense has clearly positioned the Tomahawk as a bridge capability intended to cover the vulnerability window between 2025 and 2027. The long-term strategy focuses on the indigenous development of standoff missiles, specifically the upgraded Type 12 surface-to-ship missile, which aims to extend the range of domestic weaponry to over 1,000 kilometers. The reliance on imported missiles carries inherent risks regarding supply chain continuity and modification restrictions. By utilizing the Tomahawk now, Japan buys time to mature its domestic defense industry to mass-produce the upgraded Type 12 and eventually hypersonic glide vehicles. The introduction of these missiles also necessitates a re-evaluation of the strategic concept of deterrence in the region. Proponents argue that the Tomahawk complicates the calculus of potential adversaries. Previously, an aggressor could launch strikes against Japan with the assumption that their own launch sites were safe from conventional retaliation. The presence of Tomahawk-equipped destroyers patrolling the Sea of Japan or the Pacific Ocean removes that sanctuary. It imposes a cost on aggression. However, skeptics and regional critics argue that this move risks fueling a security dilemma, prompting neighboring states to further expand their own missile inventories in anticipation of a Japanese strike. The definition of counterstrike itself remains a subject of intense debate. The Japanese government maintains that these strikes would only be authorized as a minimum necessary measure for self-defense after an armed attack against Japan has commenced. This distinction is vital for maintaining domestic political support and adhering to the pacifist constraints of the Constitution. Yet, in the fog of modern warfare, distinguishing between an imminent attack and a preemptive strike can be technically difficult. The speed of hypersonic weaponry means that the decision window for launching a counterstrike is shrinking to minutes. The integration of the Tomahawk forces Japanese political leadership to grapple with these split-second command and control decisions, a responsibility for which the post-war political infrastructure has little precedent. Ultimately, the arrival of the Tomahawk missiles on Japanese destroyers signifies the end of the exclusively shield-based defense policy. It represents a pragmatic, if controversial, adaptation to a security environment where defensive interceptors alone are no longer viewed as sufficient guarantees of safety. While the hardware is impressive, the true efficacy of this counterstrike capability will not be determined by the specifications of the missile, but by the robustness of the supporting sensor network, the independence of the targeting data, and the clarity of the political chain of command. As the Maritime Self-Defense Force integrates these systems throughout 2026, Japan enters a new era where it possesses not just the capacity to deny an attack, but the capacity to project power back to the source.